Ma'am, you need to leave this aircraft immediately. Security, we have an unauthorized person refusing to exit the plane. The words sliced through the first-class cabin like a blade. Captain Zara Williams froze in the narrow aisle, her 4 gold pilot stripes catching the overhead lights. She'd been heading to the cockpit when the flight attendant appeared, blocking her path with a beverage cart. "Excuse me?" Zara's voice remained steady despite the absurdity. Brittany Monroe, the flight attendant, pointed toward the exit door. Her voice carried across the cabin, ensuring every passenger could hear. "This is a restricted area. You can't just walk around in costume." Phones emerged from seat pockets. A teenager in 2A started recording, his eyes wide with disbelief. Other passengers craned their necks, sensing drama. Zara glanced at her uniform, then at her captain's badge. The irony wasn't lost on her. Have you ever been so misjudged that someone tried to remove you from a place you actually belonged more than anyone else? The cabin air grew thick with tension. Brittany's hand remained firmly gripped on the cart handle, creating a physical barrier between Zara and the cockpit door. "Listen, miss." Brittany's tone dripped with condescension. "I don't know where you bought that uniform, but this isn't Comic-Con. Real pilots don't look like you." The teenager in 2A, Malik Johnson, adjusted his phone angle. His Instagram live notification showed 12 viewers and climbing. "Y'all see this?" he whispered into his phone. "Flight attendant straight up blocking a pilot." Zara reached into her jacket pocket, retrieving her credentials. "I'm Captain Williams. This is Flight 447 to Chicago. I'm scheduled to pilot this aircraft." Brittany barely glanced at the identification. "Nice fake ID. Did you get that online too?" She turned to the passengers watching. "Don't worry, folks. We'll have this situation handled shortly." A businessman in 1C lowered his newspaper. "Excuse me, but she's clearly wearing a pilot's uniform. Maybe you should—" "Sir, please let us handle this," Brittany cut him off. "Some people will do anything for attention these days." The overhead speaker crackled. "Flight 447 passengers, we're experiencing a brief delay. We'll have you in the air shortly." The voice belonged to Captain Thompson, Zara's co-pilot. Zara's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. 23 years of flying, Harvard MBA, commercial pilot license since age 25. Yet here she stood, being treated like an imposter in her own workplace. "Brittany," Zara read the name tag, "I need you to step aside so I can reach the cockpit. And I need you to exit this plane before I call security." Brittany crossed her arms. "You're disrupting our departure schedule." Malik's viewer count hit 47. Comments flooded the screen. "This is crazy. Someone help her. Where's the manager?" A middle-aged woman in 2B leaned forward. "Young lady, that pilot has been nothing but professional. Maybe you should check your attitude." Brittany spun around. "Ma'am, I'm just doing my job. We can't have random people wandering around in pilot costumes. It's a security issue." "Random people?" The woman's voice sharpened. "She's clearly qualified." Zara observed the growing divide among passengers. Some defended her. Others filmed silently. A few seemed uncomfortable with the confrontation. This wasn't just about her anymore. These black stories, these real-life stories of discrimination, played out daily across America. Her phone buzzed. A text from James Martinez, Skywing's CFO. "Board meeting moved to 3 p.m. New discrimination policy draft ready for review." The irony struck her like lightning. In 3 hours, she'd be presenting anti-bias training protocols to the board. Right now, she was living exactly why those policies were necessary. Brittany noticed Zara checking her phone. "Taking selfies? Planning to post about how unfairly you were treated?" Her voice dripped with sarcasm. "Maybe next time dress appropriately for your actual job." "And what job would that be?" Zara asked quietly. "Probably something in customer service, or maybe housekeeping." Brittany's smile was razor thin. The cabin fell silent. Even the businessman folded his newspaper completely, staring at Brittany with obvious disapproval. Malik's live stream exploded. 96 viewers, comments flying. Did she just say housekeeping? This is racist AF. Screenshot this. An elderly gentleman in 1D stood up slowly. Young woman, I've been flying for 60 years. That pilot has more professionalism in her little finger than you've shown this entire time. Brittany's cheeks flushed. Sir, I'm following protocol. We can't just let anyone... Anyone what? He pressed. The question hung in the air like smoke. Zara reached into her briefcase, her fingers brushing against something few people in aviation possessed. A Skywing Platinum Executive Card. Only 12 existed worldwide. She'd received hers after acquiring controlling shares in the airline 18 months ago. She left the card where it was. The overhead speaker crackled again. This is your captain speaking. We're still experiencing a brief delay. Thank you for your patience. Thompson's voice. Her co-pilot was waiting in the cockpit, probably wondering where she was. They'd flown together dozens of times over the past year. He knew her capabilities, respected her decisions. That's the real pilot, Brittany announced triumphantly. See? Male, experienced, professional. Malik's viewer count hit 156. Someone had shared his live stream. The hashtag #SkywingDiscrimination was beginning to trend locally. Zara's phone buzzed again. This time, a news alert. American Airlines settles discrimination lawsuit for $9.8 million. The universe had a sense of timing. She looked at Brittany, then at the watching passengers, then at the phone in Malik's hand broadcasting this moment to hundreds of strangers. These touching stories, these life stories of bias and prejudice, they mattered because people witnessed them. Brittany, Zara said, her voice carrying a weight that made several passengers look up from their phones. You might want to reconsider your approach. But Brittany was already reaching for her radio. Ground control, this is Flight 447, requesting security for passenger removal. The die was cast. Within 90 seconds, the situation exploded beyond the confines of first class. Gate Supervisor Derek Martinez appeared at the aircraft door, his radio crackling with chatter. Behind him, 2 airport security officers adjusted their utility belts, hands resting casually near their radios. What's the situation here? Derek's voice carried the authority of 15 years managing gate operations. Brittany straightened her posture. We have an unauthorized individual impersonating an airline crew. She's refusing to exit the aircraft and disrupting our departure. Derek's eyes swept over Zara, taking in her uniform, her posture, her captain's briefcase. For a moment, uncertainty flickered across his face. Then he looked at Brittany, his subordinate, and made his choice. Ma'am, I'm going to need you to come with us. Malik's live stream hit 312 viewers. The comments section was chaos. Record everything. This is insane. Share this now. The businessman in 1C stood up. This is absolutely ridiculous. That woman is clearly a pilot. Look at her uniform, her credentials. Sir, please remain seated, Officer Rodriguez interrupted. We're handling this situation. But the businessman wasn't alone anymore. The elderly gentleman from 1D had joined him, along with the middle-aged woman from 2B. A pocket of resistance was forming in first class. I've been flying for 60 years, the elderly man repeated. This is discrimination, pure and simple. Officer Williams, the second security officer, stepped forward. Everyone needs to calm down and let us do our job. The irony of 2 officers named Williams and Rodriguez, both likely understanding discrimination personally, wasn't lost on Zara. But they had a job to do, and she represented a disruption to their orderly world. Derek pulled out his phone, presumably to call station management. While he dialed, Zara noticed something that made her pulse quicken. The live stream wasn't just Malik anymore. A woman in 3A was streaming on TikTok. A man in 2C had his camera app open. Even a flight attendant from economy class had discreetly positioned herself to record with her phone. Multiple angles, multiple platforms. This moment was being captured and broadcast in real time to hundreds, maybe thousands of viewers. The very technology she'd helped implement as part of Skywing's social media monitoring system was now documenting her own humiliation. "Paula's on her way," Derek announced, referring to station manager Paula Monroe. No relation to Brittany, despite the shared surname. "She'll sort this out quickly." Zara's phone buzzed. Another text from James Martinez. "Media training session scheduled for Friday. New PR crisis protocols. Are you still reviewing?" She almost laughed at the timing. Crisis protocols. She was living one right now. The overhead speaker crackled again. "Folks, this is Captain Thompson. We're going to have just a few more minutes of delay. Thank you for your continued patience." Brittany seized the moment. "See? The actual captain is handling things professionally while we deal with this situation." "Tommy Thompson," Zara said quietly, her voice carrying just far enough for the security officers to hear. "Stanford graduate, flew F-16s for 8 years, been with Skywing for 3 years, good pilot." Officer Rodriguez looked at her sharply. "How do you know that?" Before Zara could answer, station manager Paula Monroe burst through the door like a storm system. Short, sharp-featured, with the demeanor of someone who'd climbed the corporate ladder by never backing down. "What in the hell is going on here?" Paula's voice cut through the chatter. "We have a schedule to maintain." Derek quickly briefed her, painting Zara as a disruptive passenger impersonating crew. Paula's eyes narrowed as she studied Zara, taking in every detail from head to toe. "Even if you are some kind of pilot," Paula said, her tone dripping with skepticism, "you're clearly not our pilot. Skywing has standards." The words hit the cabin like a physical blow. Several passengers gasped audibly. The woman streaming on TikTok zoomed in on Paula's face, capturing the moment for posterity. Malik's viewer count exploded. 847, 923, 1,156. Someone with a large following had shared his stream. The hashtag #Skywing discrimination was trending in Atlanta. "Standards," repeated the businessman from 1C, his voice heavy with disgust. "Are you hearing yourselves right now?" Paula whipped around. "Sir, if you don't remain seated, you'll be removed from this flight as well." The threat backfired spectacularly. More passengers stood up. The cabin was divided into clear camps, those defending Zara and those uncomfortable with confrontation but too intimidated to speak. "This is going viral," someone whispered from the back of first class. "Good," another passenger replied. "People need to see this." Officer Rodriguez spoke into his radio. "Control, we might need backup at gate C12. The situation's escalating." That's when Captain Thompson appeared at the cockpit door, his confusion evident. "What's going on out here? Where's Captain Williams?" The cabin fell completely silent. Even the recordings seemed to pause. Derek stepped forward confidently. "Captain, we're removing a disruptive passenger who was impersonating the crew." Thompson looked around until his eyes found Zara. His expression shifted from confusion to disbelief to barely contained anger. "That is Captain Williams," he said, his pilot's voice carrying absolute authority. "We're scheduled to fly together today. Have been for the past 6 months." Brittany's face went pale. Paula's mouth opened, then closed without sound. Derek took a step backward, but Paula recovered quickly, her corporate training kicking in. "Well, if she's really a pilot, why didn't she just show proper identification from the beginning? Why cause all this drama?" The blame shifting was masterful. Turn the victim into the aggressor. Make her responsible for the discrimination she experienced. Malik's stream was approaching 1,500 viewers. Comments flooded in from across the country. "Atlanta airport discrimination. Skywing needs to answer for this. Screenshot those employee names." Zara reached into her jacket pocket, her fingers closing around the Skywing Platinum Executive card. The card that would end this immediately. The card that would reveal her true position and send shockwaves through everyone present. But she paused. These real-life stories, these moments of bias and prejudice, happen to people without platinum cards every single day. People without corporate power. People without the ability to flip the script with a single revelation. "Officer Rodriguez," she said quietly, "before you escort me off this plane, I'd like to make a phone call." "Ma'am, you can call whoever you want from the terminal." "No," Zara interrupted, her voice carrying a new edge that made several people look up. "I think I'll make it right here." She pulled out her phone and dialed a number she knew by heart. A number that would change everything. The phone rang once. "James, it's Zara. I need you to ground all Skywing operations immediately." The phone call lasted exactly 47 seconds. Zara spoke in calm, measured tones while every person in first class strained to hear. "Authorization code 77 Alpha 9. Yes, all flights. System-wide hold. Board meeting emergency protocol. Execute now." She ended the call and slipped the phone back into her pocket. For 30 seconds, nothing happened. Paula smirked. Derek shook his head. Brittany crossed her arms triumphantly, her confidence returning as if the call had been some desperate bluff. Then the screens started changing. The departure board at Gate C-12 flickered. Flight 447's status switched from boarding to delayed. Then to canceled. Within 90 seconds, every Skywing flight on the board showed the same ominous status. Operations suspended. The gate agent's computer chimed with an emergency alert. Her face went white as she read the message scrolling across her screen. She picked up her phone, dialed frantically, and got a busy signal. Then another. Then another. "What the hell?" Derek muttered, pulling out his radio with shaking hands. "Control, what's the status of Skywing operations?" The radio crackled back immediately. "All Skywing flights grounded by executive order. We're trying to reach management now. Nobody's answering phones." Paula's smirk vanished like smoke. "That's impossible. Nobody has that kind of authority except—" She stopped mid-sentence, her face draining of color as the realization hit her like a freight train. Malik's live stream exploded. His viewer count hit 2,847 and climbed rapidly. Comments flooded the screen faster than anyone could read. "Did she just ground the airline? Who is she? Holy shit! This is insane!" Other passengers were checking their phones, seeing the news alerts about Skywing's sudden operational suspension. The businessman in 1C was refreshing his flight app repeatedly, watching his connections disappear in real time. Zara reached into her jacket and withdrew the Skywing Platinum Executive card. The card was black titanium with gold lettering, heavier than normal plastic, with embedded security chips visible through the translucent material. Only 12 existed in the world. She held it up for everyone to see, rotating it so the special holographic logo caught the cabin lights. "My name is Zara Williams. I'm not just a pilot for Skywing Airlines." Her voice carried across the silent cabin with devastating calm. "I own Skywing Airlines." The silence that followed was deafening. Even the background hum of the aircraft's systems seemed to pause. Brittany's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. Derek's radio slipped from his hand and clattered to the floor, the sound echoing in the stillness. Paula grabbed the nearest seat to steady herself, her knuckles white against the blue fabric. Officer Rodriguez was the first to find his voice. "Ma'am, are you saying you're—" "The majority stockholder and CEO of Skywing Airlines, yes." Zara's tone remained conversational, almost gentle. "I acquired controlling shares 18 months ago through a private equity deal. I've been flying routes personally to understand operations from the ground up." She pulled out her tablet and showed the screen displaying her corporate email signature. Zara Williams, Chief Executive Officer, Skywing Airlines, Inc. Captain Thompson stepped forward from the cockpit door, his uniform crisp and his expression serious. "Ladies and gentlemen, I can confirm that Captain Williams is indeed the owner of this airline. We've flown together many times over the past year. She's one of the most skilled pilots I've ever worked with." The businessman in 1C started laughing. Not with humor, but with the kind of disbelief that borders on hysteria. You tried to kick the owner off her own plane, the actual owner. A woman in 3B whispered loudly, "Oh my God, this is better than any movie." Malik's phone was shaking in his hands as his live stream viewer count continued to explode. 4,200 viewers and climbing. Someone with millions of followers had shared it. The hashtag #Skywing owner was trending nationwide, competing with #Skywing discrimination for the top spot. But Zara wasn't finished. Not even close. "Brittany," she said, her voice cutting through the chaos like a blade. "You said Skywing has standards. You're absolutely right. We do." She pulled out her tablet and swiped to a presentation she'd been preparing for the board meeting. Charts, graphs, legal documents, all professionally formatted and bearing the Skywing corporate logo. According to Federal Aviation Regulation 121.391, airlines are liable for employee discrimination. Current case law suggests damages between $50 and $200 million for systemic bias issues. Paula tried to interject, her voice cracking. "Ms. Williams, I'm sure we can resolve this." "I'm not finished." Zara's voice carried the authority of someone accustomed to running board meetings with Fortune 500 executives. Skywing processes 2.3 million passengers monthly. We generate $847 million in quarterly revenue. She swiped to the next slide, revealing real numbers that made several passengers gasp. Real data from the airline industry's most closely guarded financial reports. Customer satisfaction has dropped 12% this year. Discrimination complaints are up 34%. Based on our social media monitoring algorithms, today's incident will cost us approximately $2.8 million in bookings within 48 hours. Derek's radio squawked again, the voice sounding increasingly urgent. "All units, we have confirmation from corporate headquarters. Skywing operations grounded by CEO Zara Williams. Repeat, CEO Williams has executive authority for all company decisions." The weight of those words settled over everyone like a heavy blanket. Even Officer Rodriguez straightened his posture, recognizing he was in the presence of someone with genuine power. Zara looked directly at Brittany, her gaze steady and unforgiving. "You asked if I was taking selfies to post about unfair treatment. As it happens, Skywing has robust social media monitoring. We track every mention, every complaint, every video posted about our company." She gestured toward Malik, still live streaming with hands that wouldn't stop shaking. "This incident is currently being viewed by over 4,000 people in real time. It's been shared on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, and Facebook. The video will be seen by hundreds of thousands, possibly millions, within 24 hours. Brittany's face had gone completely pale, her earlier confidence evaporating like morning mist. I didn't know. I'm so sorry." "You didn't know my position," Zara agreed. "But you knew I was a human being wearing a pilot's uniform with proper credentials. You saw my identification, you heard my colleague confirm my identity. That should have been enough." She turned to Paula, her expression becoming even more serious. "You said even if I was some kind of pilot, I wasn't your pilot because Skywing has standards. What standards were you referring to exactly?" Paula stammered, unable to form a coherent response, her mouth moving soundlessly. "Let me help you," Zara continued, her voice taking on the tone of a professor addressing a particularly slow student. Skywing's official mission statement includes the phrase, "Dignity and respect for every passenger and employee." Our employee handbook specifically prohibits discrimination based on race, gender, or appearance. Both documents carry my signature. The tablet screen showed Skywing's actual policies. Legal language, anti-discrimination clauses, penalty structures that could end careers and trigger lawsuits. Officer Rodriguez stepped forward carefully, his training kicking in as he recognized a volatile situation. "Ms. Williams, I apologize for the confusion. We were just responding to a call about a disruptive passenger." "You were doing your job based on false information," Zara acknowledged with a slight nod. The fault doesn't lie with airport security. You followed proper protocol. Her eyes moved deliberately to Derek, then Paula, then settled on Brittany like a laser finding its target. The fault lies with employees who made assumptions about my capabilities based on my appearance. Who chose to escalate rather than verify? Who prioritized their biases over basic human decency and company policy? Malik's viewer count hit 5,600. The comments were a flood of outrage, support, and disbelief, flowing faster than water through a broken dam. Screenshots of Brittany and Paula were already circulating on social media, being shared thousands of times per minute. But Zara had one more revelation that would change everything. There's something else you should know about today. She checked her expensive Patek Philippe watch. In exactly 97 minutes, I was scheduled to present a new company-wide anti-discrimination policy to Skywing's board of directors. She swiped to another slide showing draft policy documents, implementation timelines, and budget allocations. The presentation includes mandatory bias training for all employees, anonymous reporting systems for discrimination incidents, and immediate termination for repeat offenders. The irony was devastating. Brittany had just provided a perfect case study for the very policies designed to prevent her behavior. I was going to recommend a gradual rollout over 6 months, Zara continued, her voice gaining momentum. But today's events suggest we need immediate implementation. Her phone buzzed with a text from James Martinez. Airport security called, confirming you're okay? The media started to call about grounded flights. CNN wants a statement. Zara showed the message to the group. My CFO is concerned. The media is asking questions. This situation has moved beyond our aircraft, beyond this airport. She looked around the cabin, her gaze settling on each person who'd participated in the discrimination, memorizing faces and badge numbers. So now we have choices to make. We can handle this internally, with appropriate consequences and systematic changes. Or we can let this play out in the court of public opinion, with legal teams and PR disasters. The live stream viewer count hit 6,800. Comments were flowing too fast to read. The story was spreading across every social media platform simultaneously, becoming a trending topic in multiple countries. Brittany, Zara said quietly, her voice carrying the weight of absolute authority. What choice would you like to make? Brittany's answer came in the form of tears. Not the manipulative tears of someone trying to escape consequences, but the genuine breakdown of a person realizing the magnitude of their mistake. Her shoulders shook as the weight of potentially destroying her career and possibly facing legal action settled over her. I'm sorry, she whispered, her voice barely audible. I'm so sorry. But Zara wasn't interested in apologies. Not yet. James Martinez, my CFO, will arrive in approximately 12 minutes, she announced, checking her phone. He's bringing our legal team and HR director. We're going to handle this systematically. As if summoned by her words, 3 people in expensive suits appeared at the aircraft door. The man in the lead, tall, Hispanic, carrying a leather briefcase, was clearly James Martinez. Behind him, a sharp-eyed woman with a legal pad and a nervous-looking man clutching an iPad. Zara, James said, his voice carrying the easy familiarity of someone who'd worked with her for years. Are you all right? I'm fine, James. But we have a situation that requires immediate corporate response. James's gaze swept the cabin, taking in the security officers, the crying flight attendant, the live-streaming teenager, and the uncomfortable-looking station manager. His expression hardened. I see. He turned to the woman behind him. Sarah, please begin documenting everything. Sarah Monroe, no relation to Paula or Brittany despite the shared surname, was Skywing's chief legal counsel. She'd handled discrimination cases before, including a $15 million settlement with American Airlines the previous year. Before we proceed, Zara announced to the cabin, I want everyone to understand the legal framework we're operating under. She gestured for James to bring forward his briefcase. Inside were printed copies of federal regulations, case law precedents, and Skywing's internal policies. Under Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, Sarah began, her voice carrying the authority of someone who'd argued cases before federal judges, employers are liable for discriminatory actions by their employees. The average settlement for airline discrimination cases in 2024 was $23.7 million. Paula's face went white. Derek started backing toward the exit. "Wait," Zara said, her voice stopping Derek mid-step. "Nobody leaves until we've addressed this completely." James opened his tablet and began reading from Skywing's financial reports. Current quarterly revenue, $847 million. Daily operational costs, $9.2 million. Cost of grounding all flights for 1 hour, $384,000. The numbers hit the cabin like physical blows. Brittany's crying intensified. "Ms. Monroe," Zara addressed Paula directly, "you're currently earning $87,000 annually as station manager. Your pension vests in 14 months. Your mortgage payment is $2,240 monthly." Paula's mouth fell open. "How do you—" "I have access to all employee financial information," Zara explained calmly. "I also know you have 2 children in college and your husband was recently laid off from Delta." The personal details weren't meant to be cruel. They were meant to demonstrate the real-world consequences of losing her job. Sarah pulled out her legal pad. "Ms. Monroe, your actions today violated Skywing policies 4.1, 4.7, and 6.3. The standard penalty for multiple policy violations is immediate termination." "Please," Paula whispered. "I have a family." "So do the passengers you discriminated against," Zara replied. "So do the millions of people who will see this video and judge our airline based on your behavior." James showed his tablet to the group. Current social media metrics, #Skywing discrimination has had 47,000 mentions in the past hour. Sentiment analysis shows 89% negative towards Skywing brand. Malik's live stream had reached 8,200 viewers. The story was being picked up by news outlets. CNN had already posted a breaking news alert about Skywing's operational suspension. "The question," Zara continued, "is whether we handle this as an internal matter with appropriate consequences, or whether we let federal investigators and civil rights attorneys determine the outcome." She pulled out her phone and showed a list of missed calls. "I have 17 voicemails from lawyers offering to represent passengers who witnessed this incident. Class action suits can reach hundreds of millions in damages." Derek found his voice. "Ms. Williams, what do you want from us?" "I want acknowledgement of wrongdoing. I want commitment to change. And I want concrete actions that prevent this from happening again." Sarah opened a folder and spread documents across an empty seat. "We've prepared 3 options. Option 1, immediate termination for all involved parties, full legal prosecution, and federal investigation." Brittany's sobbing became audible throughout the cabin. Option 2, suspension without pay, mandatory sensitivity training, public apology, and probationary employment with any future incidents resulting in immediate termination. Paula nodded eagerly. "Yes, option 2, please." "Option 3, Zara said, her voice taking on a different tone, "involves something more comprehensive." She gestured for James to continue. "Skywing will implement immediate company-wide changes," James announced. "Mandatory bias training for all employees within 30 days. Anonymous reporting systems accessible via QR codes at every gate. Real-time monitoring of employee interactions with advanced AI systems." Sarah added, "Department budgets will be tied to diversity metrics. Managers who fail to maintain inclusive environments will face automatic pay reductions." "Additionally," Zara continued, "we're establishing a $5 million fund for anti-discrimination training programs industry-wide. Other airlines will adopt similar policies or face competitive disadvantage." The scope was breathtaking. Systemic change across an entire industry, triggered by one incident. Ms. Monroe, Zara addressed Paula, you'll be demoted to gate agent with a 40% pay reduction. You'll complete 200 hours of sensitivity training and write a detailed analysis of your decision-making process today. Paula nodded frantically. Yes, absolutely. Mr. Martinez, she turned to Derek, you'll be transferred to baggage services. Your supervisor role will be eliminated. You'll complete the same training requirements. Derek's shoulders sagged, but he nodded acceptance. Ms. Monroe, Zara finally addressed Brittany, you have a choice. You can accept immediate termination with a neutral reference, or you can accept 6 months unpaid suspension, 300 hours of community service with civil rights organizations, and probationary reemployment. Brittany looked up through her tears. The suspension. Please. I'll do anything to make this right. The video of this incident will be used in our training programs, Zara announced. Your faces, your words, your actions will educate thousands of employees about the consequences of discrimination. James checked his phone. Media requests are increasing. We need to make a statement soon. We will, Zara agreed. But first, I want each of you to record a personal apology. These will be posted on Skywing's official social media channels within the hour. Sarah set up a camera app on her tablet. The apologies must acknowledge specific wrongdoing, express genuine remorse, and commit to personal change. One by one, Brittany, Paula, and Derek recorded their statements. Brittany was particularly powerful. She spoke directly about her assumptions, her escalation of the situation, and her commitment to understanding her own biases. Now, Zara said as the recordings were uploaded to Skywing's servers, we resume normal operations. She pulled out her phone and dialed James's extension. Execute Operation Restart. All flights resume immediately. Within minutes, the departure boards began updating. Flight 447 showed boarding resumed. Malik finally ended his live stream, his viewer count having peaked at over 12,000. The video would be viewed millions of times in the coming days. As passengers began filing back onto the aircraft, Zara turned to Captain Thompson. Ready to fly to Chicago? More than ready, he replied with a grin. The businessman from 1C approached Zara as she headed toward the cockpit. Ma'am, I just want to say, what you did today was remarkable. I did what any person with power should do, she replied. I used it responsibly. As she reached the cockpit door, Zara paused and looked back at the cabin. These touching stories, these real-life stories of discrimination and justice, they mattered because people witnessed them, shared them, and demanded change. The flight to Chicago would be on time after all. 6 months later, Zara stood before the National Aviation Diversity Summit in Denver, addressing an audience of 847 industry professionals. The irony of the number wasn't lost on her. It matched Skywing's quarterly revenue in millions. Today I want to tell you about a flight that never took off on time, she began, her voice carrying across the packed auditorium. And how that delay changed an entire industry. The audience leaned forward. Everyone knew the story, but hearing it from Zara herself was different. Malik Johnson, the young man who live-streamed that incident, is now Skywing's Director of Social Media Accountability. His job is to monitor our company's digital footprint and ensure we're living up to our values in real time. Applause rippled through the crowd. In the front row, Malik smiled and nodded. He'd parlayed his viral moment into a career in corporate transparency. Brittany Monroe completed her community service with the NAACP and returned to Skywing as a diversity training coordinator. She now leads workshops on unconscious bias for airline employees across the country. More applause. Brittany, sitting 3 rows back, had become one of the most effective trainers in the program. Her authentic story of transformation resonated with employees in ways that corporate consultants never could. Paula Monroe was demoted but not defeated. She's now our head gate agent at Atlanta's busiest terminal, where she implements the very policies she once violated. Her performance reviews consistently show improvement in passenger satisfaction metrics. The audience was quiet now, absorbed in these black stories of redemption and growth. Derek Martinez requested a transfer to Skywing's new Inclusion and Accessibility Department. He helps develop policies for passengers with disabilities and leads our annual review of discrimination prevention protocols. Zara clicked to her next slide, showing concrete data. In 6 months, Skywing has seen an 89% reduction in discrimination complaints. Customer satisfaction scores have increased 34%. Employee retention is up 28%. These aren't just numbers. They represent real people feeling valued and respected. She paused, letting the data sink in. More importantly, 12 other airlines have adopted similar policies. American, Delta, United, Southwest, they've all implemented anonymous reporting systems, mandatory bias training, and accountability metrics. What started on one aircraft has influenced an industry serving over 900 million passengers annually. The slide changed to show industry-wide statistics. The $5 million fund we established has trained over 15,000 airline employees across 47 airlines. The training videos, featuring real incidents including our own, have been viewed 2.3 million times. In the audience, Captain Thompson smiled. He'd watched Zara grow from a skilled pilot into a transformational leader. Their flights together now included regular discussions about diversity initiatives and passenger experiences. The QR code reporting system we pioneered has logged over 3,400 positive feedback reports and 127 concerns that were addressed before escalating. Technology isn't just changing how we fly, it's changing how we treat each other. Zara clicked to her final slide. A photo of Flight 447's first-class cabin, empty and peaceful. I could have used my corporate power to quietly fire those employees and move on. Instead, we chose transparency, accountability, and systemic change. Because real transformation happens when we turn moments of failure into opportunities for growth. She looked directly at the airline executives in the front rows. Every one of you has the power to prevent the next discrimination incident. The question is, will you use that power proactively, or will you wait for your own viral moment? The standing ovation lasted 97 seconds, the same amount of time Zara had been scheduled to present her original anti-discrimination policy before the incident occurred. After her speech, a young black woman approached the stage. Ms. Williams, I'm starting pilot training next month. Thank you for making the industry safer for people like me. Similar conversations happened throughout the evening. Flight attendants, gate agents, pilots, and executives shared their own life stories of bias and transformation. Later that night, Zara sat in her hotel room reviewing social media responses to her speech. The hashtag #AviationAccountability was trending. Videos of her presentation had been shared thousands of times. Her phone buzzed with a text from James Martinez. Board-approved expansion of diversity fund to $15 million. 3 more airlines are joining the program. She smiled and typed back, "Good. This is just the beginning." Outside her window, planes took off and landed in perfect rhythm. Each aircraft carried hundreds of passengers who expected dignity, respect, and safe passage to their destinations. Most would never know how their experience had been shaped by one moment of discrimination and the systematic changes that followed. These touching stories, these real-life stories of bias confronted and overcome, had rippled far beyond a single flight. They'd changed policies, procedures, and perspectives across an entire industry. Zara had learned that true leadership wasn't about avoiding problems. It was about transforming them into solutions that served everyone. 1 year after the incident, Malik Johnson received a notification that would change everything again. His original live stream of the Skywing discrimination had been viewed 12.7 million times. Comments, shares, and responses had created a digital archive of Black stories and real-life stories that continued inspiring change across industries far beyond aviation. "Ms. Williams," Malik said during their quarterly review meeting, "I have something to show you." He pulled up his laptop screen, revealing a message from Harvard Business School. They wanted to create a case study about Skywing's transformation. The incident had become required reading and leadership courses across 17 universities. Professor Martinez, no relation to our James, wants to interview everyone involved, Malik explained. Brittany, Paula, Derek, even the passengers who witnessed everything. Zara smiled. Academic study means this story will reach future business leaders. That's exactly the kind of long-term impact we hoped for. The numbers told a remarkable story. Skywing's customer satisfaction had increased 47% over 12 months. Employee retention reached an industry-high 94%. Most importantly, discrimination complaints had dropped to nearly zero across all Skywing operations. But the real victory was industry-wide. 16 major airlines had adopted Skywing's policies. The Federal Aviation Administration had incorporated bias training into mandatory certification programs. Airport security protocols now included specific guidelines for handling discrimination reports. Brittany Monroe, now leading diversity training across the airline industry, had trained over 8,000 employees. Her workshops were booked solid through the following year. Paula had been promoted to Senior Gate Operations Manager, specializing in customer experience. Derek headed Skywing's new Customer Advocacy Department. These life stories matter, Zara reflected during her final interview for the Harvard case study. When people witness discrimination, they have choices. They can stay silent, they can speak up, or they can use whatever power they have to create systematic change. The Harvard researchers were particularly interested in how social media had amplified the incident's impact. Malik's live stream had sparked thousands of similar videos documenting workplace bias. The hashtag #WorkplaceDignity had logged over 890,000 posts from people sharing their own experiences. Technology doesn't create justice, Zara explained to the researchers, but it can make injustice impossible to ignore. And once injustice becomes visible, people with power have no excuse for inaction. The documentary rights to the story had been purchased by Netflix. Zara insisted that all proceeds would fund scholarships for underrepresented students pursuing aviation careers. The film would reach millions more people, extending these touching stories far beyond business schools and training programs. 3 months later, Time magazine named Zara one of their 100 most influential people. The citation read, "Williams proved that true leadership means using power to lift others up, not to lift yourself above them." But for Zara, the real measure of success was simpler. Every month, she received dozens of messages from airline employees, passengers, and travelers sharing their own experiences of dignity and respect in aviation. "I flew Skywing last week," read one typical message. "The gate agent went out of her way to help my elderly mother. She treated us like family. Thank you for creating a culture where kindness matters." Those messages reminded her why the incident mattered, why the changes were necessary, and why the work would never truly be finished. Your voice can spark change too. Have you witnessed discrimination in your workplace, your community, or while traveling? Share your story in the comments below. When we speak up about injustice, we make it harder for bias to hide in the shadows. Every story shared is a step toward a more just world. Your experience might be exactly what someone else needs to hear to find the courage to speak up. Subscribe to Black Voices Speak for more stories of resilience, courage, and transformation. Hit that notification bell because these stories, these real-life stories of people standing up for what's right, they matter now more than ever. Remember, change doesn't require a corporate title or millions of followers. It requires courage, witnesses, and the belief that everyone deserves dignity. Share this story if it moved you. Comment if you've lived something similar. Together, we make discrimination impossible to ignore.